Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
So, if Manchester was meant to be the relaunch of the Tories and Theresa May, what will they do for an encore? The conference was punctuated by so many wrong notes that even those whose music was played to brighten up the proceedings objected. There are plenty of Tories who'd ditch Mrs May tomorrow. All that stops them is the lack of an agreed successor, as we've been saying, and the fear that a leadership contest could lead to another general election, which they'd lose. So does Mrs May stumble on from disaster to disaster, or after yesterday are Tories beginning to think that almost anybody else would be preferable? Here's Anne McElvoy with our roundup of the week.
When This Week said they'd got a job for me, but it meant dealing with backbiting, keeping score and some creepy cuddly toys, I thought they meant Conservative Party conference, but no, University Challenge. Yes, by some miracle of brain power, This Week has got a place in the heats. Well, they cheated, obviously, but now their star player has caught conference learning, so they've drafted me in to help. Guess it'll appeal to the youth vote. Everybody's at it. Theresa May started her conference by promising a freeze on tuition fees and a review into student debt.
We are saying that we're going to raise that threshold at which you start to pay, which means that for those who are able to take full benefit of that, it'll be £30 a month more money into graduates' pockets, and we will scrap the intended increase in the level of fees.
After a week of Labour triumphalism, the Tories started their conference in no mood to celebrate. Their Scottish leader, Ruth Davison, tried to raise their spirits. Any hope of a pre-quiz sharpener, anyone?
Politics is not for faint hearts. It's not about what's in fashion or who is the absolute boy. It's about making the case for what you believe in. And I have watched, with incredulity, the response to the Labour Party conference this week. Commentators who should know better, declaring that Jeremy Corbyn is a shoo-in to number 10 just because Glastonbury chanted his name to the White Stripes. Folks, he hasn't even won a raffle yet.
Better go find the team. I bet they're doing some last-minute brainy swatting. Hiya, Liz, where's Andrew?
I think he's gone out to get some cough sweets.
Better get in there then, eh?
Yes. Welcome. Tonight, first-time competitors this week. Is that right? Yeah. Anyway, their alumni apparently include Pete Doherty, the Cheeky Girls, and Diane Abbott, whoever they are. Anyway, they're up against some proper people from Question Time. Right, fingers on buzzers, starter for 10. How did Chancellor Philip Hammond characterise Labour's attitude to the economy this week?
This week, Portillo.
Wrong. No conferring.
Last week at Brighton, the dinosaurs had broken out of their glass cases. Their political DNA apparently uncontaminated by any contact with the reality of 30 years of global economic development.
Right, you could have gone for dinosaurs, socialists or wreakers of havoc, but you didn't, so no points. Right, next starter. What's Brexit going to cost?
This week, McElvoy.
30 billion.
I haven't finished the question. What's Brexit going to cost the EU 27? Someone? Anyone? No? Well, according to Jean-Claude Juncker, it's nothing. Just like your score.
We still cannot talk about the future without any real clarity. We first need to agree on the terms of the divorce, and then we see if we can have lovingly find each other again. Work still remains to be done. We have not yet made the sufficient progress needed. but the taxpayers of the EU27 should not pay for the British decision.
Right, next round. Come on, this week you're on 0.
We're a player down. Andrew's OD'd on throat lozenges.
Oh, wait, we've got a backup.
We Conservatives have been privileged, collectively, to be placed in charge of this amazing country at a critical moment in our history. We are not the lion. We do not claim, like some others, to be the lion. That role is played by the people of this country. But it is up to us now, in the traditional, non-threatening and genial, self-deprecating way of the British, to let that lion roar.
OK, final question. What was the Prime Minister given during her speech?
This week, Kendall.
A P45!
No, no interrupting. No, it was, in fact, a lozenge.
But we did not get the victory we wanted because our national campaign fell short. I hold my hands up for that. I take responsibility. I led the campaign, and I am sorry. I can announce that we will invest an additional £2 billion in affordable housing, taking the government's total affordable housing budget to almost £9 billion.
Yes. Which political genius came up with the idea of intervening in the markets to control energy prices?
This week, Portillo.
Marx!
No! Ed Miliband!
No, it was Theresa May. This time.
This government will publish a draft bill to put a price cap on energy bills, meeting our manifesto promise and bring an end to rip-off energy prices once and for all. And it's the Conservative Party that has a vision of an open, global, self-confident Britain, while our opponents flirt with a foreign policy of neutrality.
And she did get a P45.
Yes, she did.
Look, be quiet. Look, can you just behave yourselves? Control yourselves. This is University Challenge, not the Conservative Party. Right, final scores. Question time, 300. This week, -10. Good night.
What a bunch of thickos!
She knows the show too well. Hoping to continue her losing streak, Anne joins us now. Welcome, Anne. Mrs May says she has a vision for Britain, does she?
I think was very confused. I think she had two things she wanted to say. Excuse me, I'm getting the Theresa May thing. It's catchy.
It is clearly catchy.
She wanted to say that she understood why there is a populism out there, populism of the left as well as the right. So there was a bit of Corbyn light, wasn't there? There was all those freezers and caps and that sort of state intervention. At the same time, she wanted to say that she was the great defender of the free market. So I think she really got... Now, admittedly, of course, all politics is these days a pick and mix of these two things. But I think you have to decide in a way where your emphasis lies. And though she had some independently quite good ideas in this speech, it just came across as a bit of a rag bag. And I don't think we knew by the end what was more important to her than anything else. I always think that's a sign of a leader's speech that's gone a bit off track.
Michael, what's the point of praising the power of the free market and then saying you'll cap energy prices, provide more money for state housing and look again at tuition fees?
There's a very big point, which is that if people are going to believe in capitalism, they have to believe that it is properly regulated. Part of what has gone wrong in the last 10 years, in which people have not seen much rise in their living standards, following the crash, a period when we've still seen, chief executives earning enormous pay rises, is that people feel the system is rigged against them and that there are no controls. So actually, I don't have an ideological problem with the Prime Minister saying that she wants to do something about energy prices. I mean, this has been, independently vetted, and it looks like vast excess profits are being made. So I have no particular problem with that. On her intervention in the housing market, I would want it to be much greater, and that would also be...
It's pitiful. Really.
That would also be because of economics. I mean, why are house prices so high? Because the supply is less than the demand. So what do you do about that? You have to increase the supply, but you have to increase the supply vastly. And you can't do that, it's been proved over the last 5-10 years, you can't do that by encouraging the house builders, because the house builders would rather sell very few houses for huge profits rather than lots of houses for small profits. So it can only be the government that's going to intervene. But you've got to intervene by building hundreds of thousands of houses, not 5,000 houses a year.
Well, 5,000 extra, but you're right, it was only the extra. A lot of what she was announcing, it's you must have, it must have been déjà vu for you. It's like sort of Ed Miliband light, isn't it?
Thinking back to, I mean, many people have said it before, Ed may have lost the election, but began winning the battle of ideas. You see, I am not sure, I don't believe that Theresa May really understands how the economy needs to change. You know, we are going to have the worst period of wage stagnation for 150 years. We are the most geographically unbalanced economy in Europe.
We're not more unbalanced than Italy.
Well, the
gap between northern Italy and southern Italy is far bigger.
We still have only London and the southeast for output has got back to pre-crisis levels. Huge problems with housing, whilst employment rates are high. We have lots more casualised and insecure.
But that's all analysis. You know,
that.
Politicians can do analysis till the cows come
But
home. What we want to know is what you're going to do about it.
But Andrew, if you don't have the analysis, you're not going to come up with the right answers. And I don't
we
think
get
she
nothing
can look
but
it in the face.
analysis. You see, the thing that puzzled me is that Mrs. May says the British dream, whatever that is, I guess it's a version of the American dream, she says that's slipping away, and therefore she has to do a number of things. How can you say that when you've been in power for the past 7 years? If it's slipping away, it's slipped away under your watch.
I mean, is it a continuity or is it change? I think it's a fair point that Michael raises. You know, capitalism is going to have to change. It's going to have to change quite radically, and a lot of people on the right as well as the left are beginning to get their heads around that. But there is an element of this is conservatism. We stand by it. These are our values. I used to hand out envelopes just like you. A lot of that going eyeball to eyeball, really, with her,
but
her
it doesn't
audience.
mean anything to anybody.
Well, it doesn't mean anything to anyone
outside the bubble.
hall.
Yeah, outside
and
the
I think
hall.
that was the problem, that if she was going to say radical change, as Michael suggested, she ran through some areas that seemed to suggest that, they did seem to be quite small responses to very big problems. So I wonder whether she wouldn't have been better to have a clearer through line to this speech that said, there are so many things on our plate, but if you want my 3 priorities, apart from Brexit, which was going to haunt her anyway, here they are. By the end, I was beginning to lose count. And, you know, the Economist is particularly interested in policy. And generally, we can't be faulted on not having enough policy wonks. But I thought it was just getting too piecemeal.
I mean, I think it's strange to say the housing crisis is so serious that I, the Prime Minister, I'm going to take personal charge of it. And then, as you say, come up with a policy that only results in 5,000 more homes. It doesn't seem to rise to the occasion that she herself is required. But maybe this is the truth. Maybe Brexit's just drained the Tories of energies, that they haven't got the stamina or the brain power for anything else now.
Well, remember, the other thing that they've been drained of is a majority. There's a big debate as to how you get anything through this Parliament. You know, even things that sound like Tory policies, you have to fight to get your majority. And how exactly all the Brexit legislation is going to be got through, you know, is a matter that lies ahead. So, yes, I think it is an exhausted government. However...
Briefly, Michael.
Well, I was just going to say, just recalling Ed Miliband, this was only 2 years ago, when Ed Miliband came up with policies that seemed implausible. Against all expectations, he was defeated because people simply didn't believe in him. The Labour Party has now convinced itself that with policies that are far more implausible, it is going to win the next election. I think there's still a big question mark about that.
Lots of big question marks around. Go and rest your voice, Anne.
Yes, that lozenge.
It's the This Week lozenge. It's the only one we could afford.
I've been